Hello everyone. In this video, we will show some distribution functions for the present value of the life annuities. First, consider a whole life continuous annuity. That is y equals a bar angle tx. And we consider two survival models. The first one, constant force, mu equals 0.015. And the other one, Mechanics law, A is 0, B 0.00015, C is 1.12. The current age of the individual is 40. And for the two models, we assume the force of interest is 0.06. All right, this is the shape for the CDF of Y. The minimum value for Y is 0 for continuous annuity. And then the maximum value for Y corresponds to the present value of a continuous perpetuity, which is 1 over delta. In this case, delta is 0.06. So we have the maximum for Y, 16.6667. Let's move on to the N-year temporary annuity. Here, this is the expression for Y. Consider a 15-year temporary annuity. These are the graphs for the whole life annuity. When Tx is less than or equals to N, the value for Y for temporary annuity is the same for the value of Y for the whole life annuity, A bar angle Tx. And then if Tx is greater than N, Y is a constant, A bar angle N. Therefore, for the first portion, the graph for the N-year temporary annuity is the same as the graph for the whole life annuity until reaching the maximum value for Y. In this case, the maximum value for Y is A bar angle N or A bar angle 15 here. At this maximum value for Y, the CDF jump from this point to what? And this maximum value for Y, as mentioned, A bar angle 15, and then jump of the CDF from NQX to what? At this value of Y. And this is the typical shape for the CDF for an N-year or 15-year, in this case, temporary annuity. All right, the next one, N-year deferred annuity. There is no payment for Tx less than or equals N, and therefore Y is 0. And then when Tx is greater than N, Y is A bar angle Tx minus A bar angle N. Consider the 15-year deferred annuity. Again, we will compare this with the whole life annuity. All right, when Tx is less than or equals to N, Y is 0. That is, there is a probability mass at Y equals 0. Therefore, the CDF will not start at 0 when Y is 0. It starts with a positive probability here. This is the probability that Y equals 0. And let's compare the expression for Y when Tx is greater than N. The graph for the deferred annuity is in fact parallel to the graph for the whole life annuity. This simply is a leftward shift with an amount A bar angle N. All right, the maximum value of Y this corresponds to 1 over delta minus A bar angle N equals 15. We can get the maximum value for Y, in this case, 6.7762. And then the probability Y equals 0. This occurs when Tx is less than or equals N. Therefore, the corresponding probability is NQX. And this is the typical shapes for the N-year deferred annuity. The last type of life annuity, certain and life annuity. All right, we have when Tx is less than or equals N, the payments are certain for N year. Therefore, Y is A bar angle N. And then when Tx is greater than N, the value for Y depends on Tx. So Y equals A bar angle Tx. Consider a 15-year certain and life annuity. Again, start with the whole life annuity. The minimum value for Y is no longer 0. The minimum of Y is A bar angle N. And therefore, the value for Y start at the minimum. And then the remaining part, the value for the certain and life annuity is the same as the value as for the whole life annuity, A bar angle Tx. All right, so the maximum value for Y is still 1 over delta. And then the minimum value for Y is A bar angle N. In this case, A bar angle 15. And the probability mass at this value for Y is NQX. And these are the typical graph of the CDF for the N-year certain and life annuity. All right, let's summarize everything on this page. For whole life annuity, the CDF here. Okay, only for continuous annuity, Y start from 0. And then the maximum for Y is 1 over delta. For the N-year temporary annuity, Y start from 0. And then reaching the maximum, A bar angle N. And then there's a jump for the CDF value from NQX to 1. For the N-year deferred annuity, there is a probability mass at Y equals 0 corresponds to the probability NQX. The maximum value for Y is 1 over delta minus A bar angle N. For the certain and life annuity, the minimum value for Y is A bar angle N, a probability mass NQX, and then the maximum value for Y is 1 over delta. And these are the typical shape for the graph of the CDF of Y. All right, that's it for today's video. Thank you for watching. and see you in the next video.